Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. This is the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. And my name is Art Burns, which you already know. And you already also know that I am super excited to be here with you, as I am every single day. This is not a lie. This is no joke. This is real, honest excitement. And I just want you to know that because I'm excited because, I get the emails from people and I get the their feedback from people telling me how much they're benefiting from these videos that I make and these podcasts that I make. I get emails from people all over the world, and it just makes me so excited to know that you're benefiting. That's what I do this for. It's not for me. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit for me. I'll be honest with that. I enjoy doing it. It's a good exercise for me. It's a good way for me to keep practicing my craft. This is all true. I would have given up on it a long time ago, or at least I would have cut back to, just doing a few days a week or something like that. But no, the feedback is what's really keeping me going because, again, it's not the feedback like I'm benefiting from the feedback, but the feedback tells me that you're benefiting from this work. And that's what gets me. That's literally what gets me out of bed in the morning. I have a personal story I'd like to share with you real quick before we get into today's topic. So up until 2016, the beginning of 2016, I owned a small cafe in the Hudson Valley of New York, right? It was a little bagel shop where, but we made all kinds of stuff. So it wasn't just, bagels. It wasn't really a deli. People used to come in, sit and eat. And it was a great thing. It was all, real great neighborhood feel, real, we were in a small town, 15,000 people in the whole town. So it was really like a tight-knit community. And I was serving that tight-knit community. It was very, very rewarding, on some levels. It was very, very rewarding, but it was also very, very difficult, right? I mean, you're talking about literally, I used to work 19-hour days, like very, very many Fridays during the busy time of the year. So maybe about 10 to 15 Fridays every year, I would wind up working 19 hours where I would wake up at 4 a.m. and or be at the shop at 4 a.m. I shouldn't say wake up, but I had like 200 yards to walk to the shop. So essentially it could be mostly the same thing, but be at the shop at 4 a.m. to start cooking bagels and then go through the whole day, go out and get the supplies for the weekend and do that, all kinds of stuff, and then make the bagel dough for the next day. And I wouldn't get home until like 11:30 at night. Literally. Like, that is no exaggeration, no hyperbole. And that used to happen, like I said, during the busy time of year. It was pretty regular. So it came to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is my family suffering. I'm suffering. I'm really not feeling good. And I had already started to practice mindfulness and learn about mindfulness. And I think that's why I realized, like, okay, this isn't good for me. I can't keep just doing this and think that things are going to get better. They're only going to get worse. My body's only going to, suffer more. I'm going to become more sort of broken as things go on. So I decided to sell the shop, right? And I found a wonderful person who was one of my manager at the time. She purchased the shop for me, single mom, whole thing, great story, And so at this time, I was also, pursuing not only just my mindfulness, practices, but I was also pursuing some spirituality. I really needed to know what was beneath the surface here. What was, there's more to life than what was happening, at the bagel shop, And so I was working with someone who lived in this small town with us. She was an amazing woman, still is an amazing woman, very dear friend of mine, really impactful person in my life, very, very impactful person in my life. And I think we shared that. I think that was reciprocal on some level. But anyway, I was sitting down to coffee after I'd sold the shop, thinking about moving out of the town because it was hard to live in that town because we were very much, identified as the bagel family, so it was like, my wife and kids didn't really love that. I was a little, going to the supermarket to buy a loaf of bread would be a 20-minute, experience because I'd have to stop and talk to people along the way because, everybody knew me. So we wanted some anonymity. We're thinking about moving out. But anyway, I was thinking about like, what's next? What am I going to do with myself? I can't retire on the money that I didn't make that much on the sale. Very little profit anyway. I had to pay it all back to the people I borrowed it to open the shop. Well, anyway, not to get into too many details about that, but what was next? And so originally I was thinking about, doing another food business. This one was going to be a mobile food business. I was actually going to I was looking at old retired school buses that you can buy them pretty cheap, just so you know. You can buy a really good, very well, maintained and in good shape school bus for about like $4,000 or something like that in most areas. This is because they take the school buses off the road. The state mandates that they can't have a certain amount of miles on them. So you can get a pretty good deal if you're looking to convert something into like an RV kind of thing or a food truck of some sort. A school bus is definitely a good way to go. And so I had a mechanic I was working with. He was going to help me weld all the stuff that we needed to do inside, and it was like a real thing. We were very, very close to doing it. But I was sitting down with my spiritual teacher, let's call her. There's a wonderful woman named Eileen O'Hare, and I would introduce any of you to her. So if you want to know how to get in touch with her, get in touch with me, and I'll tell you. She's a magical woman. You can look her up. Amazing. So we're sitting having coffee, and and I'm like, well, we're talking, and I was like, well, I want to do something like what you do, Eileen. That's what I really want to do. I want to be able to make a difference for people the way that you have made a difference for me and several other people I know. And she gave me the vote of confidence that I needed to do this, right? She said, well, you have to put in the work. Here's how it goes. You got to do a lot of training. You've got to do a lot of work on yourself. You've got to, you've got a long road ahead of you if this is what you want. But 2 or 3 years, you could start helping people the same way that I do. You can do this. And I'll never forget the moment that I was sitting there at this counter talking to her, at a table talking to her, and I said, this was like the big, the revelation for me. And this ties back to what I'm talking about here. Sorry for this long walk for a ham sandwich, as they say. But I said to Eileen, I said, yeah, the world doesn't really need another burrito truck, does it? And she looked at me and she said, no, the world doesn't need another burrito truck. The world needs you. And if you are inspired to help people, then that's what you should do. And it's been a hard road, my friends. It really has. There were some really tough times, I was driving even a year, just before the pandemic started, I was driving Lyft at night to just pay the bills, while I was trying to find people to work with and stuff, So it's really been a long road, but I'm here now. And I see that, not only do I get the emails from people who are watching this video or these videos and these podcasts, but also my current clients. I currently have 20 different people who I'm trusted to work with and to help them to make improvements in their life. And some of the things that I hear from them in terms of the ways in which their lives have changed, I might start crying if I keep talking about this. Seriously, it is that big. And it brings me back to that moment when I was sitting there talking to Eileen and saying that I need to do something that makes a difference for people. Not just a delicious bagel, not just a delicious burrito at some music festival or something, but me, making a real change in people's lives and helping people to make a real change in their own lives. And you know what? That's what I'm talking about here, right? So when I get these emails from you, and I get these emails from the people who I'm working with one-on-one or in group settings, and even when my coach, and we're in a group together, I have a new coach, and my coach knows Eileen, and it's all connected and all that beautiful stuff, and I'm still on this journey, but the fact is that all of it, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling how I'm helping. And knowing that I'm doing that literally is the reason I get out of bed every morning. And so I wanted to tell you that because I wanted to thank you for all the feedback that you send. And I wanted to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching these videos. And I want to thank you for all of you who have heard these videos and booked a call with me. And now we're working together or we're not. I want to thank you all for it because it's all, because you making a comment to me about how much this is helping you gives me the inspiration to now turn and help this other person. So it's we're all in this together, right? It's not just like, it's not a one-way thing here. It's all of us, right? And by the way, I just saw somebody just claimed that 5th spot on my Patreon. So now I have 5 people in this wonderful group. I'm going to make an announcement probably in the next couple of days on how this is all going to work. We're going to have at least a monthly, maybe a bi-weekly or bi-monthly, I don't know, maybe twice a month meetup with the group that are my patrons, and it's going to be coaching, and it's going to be really beneficial. We'll do guided meditations, we'll do coaching, we'll answer questions, we'll really dig deep, and we're going to really impact even further impact, and I'm just so excited about that. All right, so thank you everybody for listening to this little 10-minute story here. I appreciate it. So now let's talk about new business, as we say, right? Let's go into today's topic, and really today's topic is actually an extension of yesterday's topic, which is not completely unusual in this podcast, as you all know. But yesterday we talked about something that was really important, right? We talked about how the emotions that we feel and the physical sensations we feel, the thoughts that arise, the people that come into our lives, the circumstances we have, that it's all very impermanent and it's very transitory. It's arising, it's existing for a time, and then it's passing by, and we talked about this. And one of the things I mentioned is that, the idea of being able to move past the anger that might be holding you down, right? Or move past whatever the negative, emotion that you're feeling, right? And remember, negative emotion does not mean bad emotion, right? Negative emotion means, repelling emotion, right? Which is rooted in fear, right? When we're clinging to something, it's because we're afraid and this is going to come back in a second. So please pay attention to what I'm saying here. When we're clinging to something that we don't want to lose, we're in fear. When we're averting something, when we're pushing something away, saying, no, this flat tire can't happen today to me, we're acting in fear, right? When we don't see things for what they really are, but instead allow ourselves to color what we're seeing with our mind, well, that also is something that we're acting from a place of fear, right? Fear is going to cause that stress response in our bodies, right? So what I want to talk about today, right, is again, and we're going to come back to that. So everything I just said, hold that in your mind for a minute. Okay. But what happens is when I talked yesterday about, being able to kind of, transcend the anger or whatever the emotion that is causing you to suffer, right? To be able to get through that, right? We're walking a very, very fine and important line when we're talking about that. Okay, that conversation, there's a very, very fine line there, and it's an important one. So I need to make sure that I actually reshuffled the whole deck of this week's podcast. This was not going to be the original conversation, but I realized that I owe it to you to be very, very clear about this. Okay, because some of what I said yesterday may have sounded a little bit like I was saying, just get over it, just move past it, just be happy, everything will be okay, just don't let your anger do that thing or something like that, right? And when we get into those kind of concepts or those kind of talking points, right, what we're doing is we're edging and we're nipping on the edges of what we might call toxic positivity, right? Or like, don't worry, be happy kind of stuff, and there is a very important and very beneficial and a legitimate school of positive psychology, right? That when we can feel more positive emotions, that means that we're happy, right? And when we can, find a satisfaction in our life, and we can sort of feel as though our life is on track towards the goals that we want. This doesn't mean that it's on track for the goals that you set when you were in high school, but you've reorganized your goals, you've reset your goals as you've come along in your life, and things have kind of fallen into more focus, right? So the more we feel all that, the more positive emotions we feel, the more we feel that our life is on pace for our goals, and it has, we're feeling stable in our life, and that our life has some kind of meaning. Well, those are the ingredients of happiness, right? So it's really, really important to understand that, and to respect that, and to honor that, right? But again, that does not ever mean that we ignore the negative emotions that we're feeling, right? And it doesn't mean that we block them, and it doesn't mean that we, avoid them in any way, because that is going to cause much more suffering in the end than simply, living through the emotions, right? So what I was talking about yesterday, right, was the practice of seeing the emotions as they are arising, right? Allowing them to arise, but then allowing them to pass by, right? Allowing the anger, because the other thing that's really important to remember here is that with negative emotions, right, they do serve a purpose, and they're very important, right? But again, the negative emotions are associated with stress, right? And the stress in your body is also very, very helpful to you, and it's very important to you, right? But, and this is a big but here, when the stress becomes chronic, that's when it's a problem, right? The stress response in your body, and every human being's body, and every animal, every gazelle, every deer, every animal who is the prey of any predator, right? Just, and us as humans, right? The stress response is only supposed to last for maybe 5 minutes or so, maybe even less in most cases, right? Like a cheetah chasing a gazelle, the cheetah can't run for more than about 2 minutes, right? Maybe 3. At 60 miles an hour, it takes a lot of energy, right? And so even in the animal world like that, in the wilderness of prey and predator, even then, the stress response in the body of the gazelle only needs to last about 2 or 3 minutes. Just long, it's like a friend of mine told me one time. We were hiking in Montana, and and there's bears in that area, and I was like, we were all talking tough about what we'd do if we saw a bear, and my friend says something about like, we were all talking about like who's going to be, how can we run away from a bear? And my friend says, well, I don't have to be faster than the bear. I just have to be faster than you. I was like, yeah, that's true. Okay, I get it. And that's what I mean, right? Like the gazelle doesn't have to run for 10 minutes. The gazelle just has to run for about 10 seconds fast, longer than the cheetah can run, right? So again, going back to the point here is that the stress response is not supposed to last for more than a few minutes, right? And in the same way that if your stress lasts longer than that, it goes from something that is very useful to you to something that is very unuseful, actually very harmful to you, right? Same thing with your negative emotions, right? Your negative emotions are supposed to last for maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour. Let's give it an hour tops, right? But not really. Let's whatever. Let's just say it's 20 minutes, just for the sake of argument, right? We could debate this some other time, or I can debate this in myself and come up with a podcast on this some other time. But the idea, though, is that if we're constantly dwelling in the negative emotions, right? If those negative emotions become chronic, just like stress does, well, then what it's going to do is going to interfere and impede our ability to live our lives on our terms. Right? And so just like the stress response, it's not something that we want to necessarily completely get rid of, right? Because you need the stress response. It's good for you. You need the negative emotions. They're good for you. But what we want to be able to do is to regulate each of these things, right? And the same concept applies for both stress and negative emotions, right? So it's not about avoiding, but what it is about acknowledging. And in that acknowledgement, in that awareness of it, getting to know it, letting it in, like I told you about the client JC the other day, right? Like he saw that old angry person that he used to be, right? And he didn't say, "Oh, no, I can't have that." He said, "No, come on in. Let's sit for a minute. Let me see what you're up to here. Like, why are you here? What's going on? Let's discover this. Let's be curious about it. And let's come up with an answer." Because that's what happens, right? When you can acknowledge and be present with your negative emotions like anger, like fear, like jealousy, like shame, like guilt, like all of them, right? When you can allow yourself to be with them, now you can discover where they're coming from and why are they here and what is their mission, what is their point, right? And that, right, that ability to be aware of it allows you now to understand that the negative emotions that you're experiencing are always coming from the delusion, the clinging, the aversion. Always. Right? Not sometimes, always, right? And so when we can see that, now we can ask ourselves a very, very helpful and important question. What is it that I am clinging to? Should I be letting it go? What am I being aversive to? Should I accept it? What is it that I'm misunderstanding about what I'm seeing out here in my world? Should I practice non-judging awareness? Right? Because when we do that, when we see where these things come from, now a couple of really important things happen. Number one, it gives us a chance to regulate. Right? Because when you're in this place of anger, you're in a place of I mean, dysregulation is just the start, right? Anger is notably, out of control, right? So if you're in a place of anger, then everything you say, everything you do, it's coming from someplace that's not you. It's not your heart. It's not your intention, right? It's like Jekyll and Hyde, right? Mr. Hyde is talking, right? You want Dr. Jekyll to be talking, right? And so that's the first thing that happens, is that we can sort of, we can see it and then we can regulate it, right? But the other thing that happens, right, is now we can be honest with ourselves and honest with everybody around us, right? So like when we're feeling that anger, right, or that jealousy or shame or grief or guilt or whatever it is that we're feeling that's on the negative end of, the negative end of the polarity of our emotions, right? Again, not bad, just negative as opposed to positive, repelling as opposed to attracting. When we are in that place, right, if we're acknowledging it and we're allowing it to be, right, we're not, because again, the clinging and the aversion and the delusion could cause those emotions to arise. They do cause those emotions to arise. But in those emotions themselves, we can also practice aversion, clinging, and delusion, right? Which only perpetuates the cycle and makes it, and that's why we come up with a bad mood that we're in for days on end, right? Even though, as I've told you, the physical emotion of your body only lasts for 90 seconds. Any given emotion. It's got a maximum shelf life of about 90 seconds, which means that when you're in a bad mood for 3 or 4 days, right, or even for 2 or 3 hours, that's because we're feeding it. We're perpetuating a cycle. And it all comes down to, like I said, the clinging, the aversion, the delusion, right? And when we can practice non-judging awareness and really see what is happening, not what we think is happening, not what should be happening, not what we wish were happening, what is happening, and we can practice and see the opportunity and practice letting go or acceptance, well, then what we do is we allow ourselves to be honest, right? We might still be feeling that anger. We might still be in not a great place, but because we're not, because we're seeing it for what it is and we're not pushing away from it and we're not clinging to it, then at that point, we can act from that place and still be in some level of control of ourselves and still be honest with those around us, right? And this is what this looks like, is saying to someone who you love and who loves you, as they come to you, you say, look, I don't want you to get the wrong impression, okay? Because I am just I'm having a hard time, processing something right now. It's giving me some trouble. It might be better if I was alone for a minute, but if you really need me, then ask what you need. But please understand that I'm not myself, and so I might not seem my usual self, right? Imagine if every conversation we had when we were angry went like that. How much different things would be, right? And so the other thing, and this is sort of a bonus, right? Wait, there's more. I'm all about the Ginsu knives here, right? When the other thing that happens when we can do this, right? When we bring awareness, courageous and brave awareness to these emotions as we're trying to, regulate them so that we can live our lives on our terms, right? When we expand and work on this awareness, what we can see is progress. And this is very important, okay? I have a personal story, a little one now, because we only have about 5 minutes before I'm going to try to wrap this up here. It's about 4 minutes. A few years ago, right, like in the midst of all that bagel shop stuff, I mean, you can imagine if I'm working 19 hours a day, you can imagine I'm not a very happy person all the time, right? And I had some definite anger issues, right? Right? And so there were, there were times where, something wouldn't go my way or whatever, and I would express my anger very highly, right? Well, not too long ago, there was another situation that was kind of similar to what would have happened before, right? I don't want to get into too many details here, but essentially it was something about, my kids interrupting me when I'm working, right? And my wife interrupting me when I'm working. And so in the past, right, this would have led to me yelling, to me, slamming many doors, to me, pontificating about this and making sure that everybody heard how wrong they were and how I need this time and this is wrong and blah, 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 right? All that stuff, right? Well, just the other day it happened again, right? Where I was just yesterday, in fact. I was 15 minutes into recording this podcast, and all of a sudden everybody's in my office making noise, and I just had to start over. And you can imagine that that's not pleasant, right? And it also impacts the rest of my day, right? Because I have other appointments and stuff. So it's not just like, oh, shucks, it's so inconvenient. It was a big deal. It was very, very inconvenient, very difficult for me to handle, right? And I did get upset. I did. I felt it, and I expressed it a little bit. But here's the thing, right? But I came down from it very quickly too, right? I mean, it wasn't 90 seconds, but it also wasn't, hours and hours and hours, right? It was maybe 20, 30 minutes. And what I did was I showed my family, like, I got to go regulate myself. I've got to sit in meditation. Please give me some space, right? Again, as opposed to yelling at them and screaming at them and stuff like that, right? And so what I'm saying then later, I was reflecting on what had happened, and I realized how far I've come. And that allowed me to be grateful for this whole thing that happened yesterday morning, right? Because if if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't know how much I've come, how far I've come. Now, of course, for me, it's I've been doing this for many, many years. So it's like, I have lots of opportunities, but for you, as you're starting this practice, right, this is something that's going to be very, very beneficial, is to see the difference in how you used to react to something and how now you're responding to something instead of reacting. Okay, and that realization is only going to arise from the non-judging awareness. All right? All right, folks. Don't forget, tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, that's 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, we're doing a meditation. Okay, it's a group meditation, but it's also going to include a little kind of talk and some questions and answers, right? And so tonight I'm planning to do a compassion meditation. I invite all of you to join me. Okay, it's completely free. I'm going to put a link to join. Well, it's a link to register in the comments. So it's a two-step process, right? Like, and this is important because some people have, like after the event starts, you can't get in anymore, right? So take a minute, click the link in the description. Just you got to put in your email address and your name, and just hit register. It's really simple. It's completely free, no money involved at all. And just register, and then you'll get the Zoom link, and so then you can join us. Okay. And you don't have to re-register every time. You just have to RSVP after that. So it's very simple. So I hope you can make it. I really do, because it was really amazing last time, and I got some great feedback. It felt good. I think everybody enjoyed it, and I would love to see you there. So if you're available tonight, join us. We're doing it every Wednesday, though, and we also do one. Pardon me. We also do one Saturday morning. Saturday morning is at 9 a.m. my time, which is pardon me, the 11 o'clock on the East Coast and 8 o'clock on the West Coast. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining me. I wish you well, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions or any feedback, lay it on me, please. I can't wait. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.